This week's episode of our show has been sponsored by HeroForge.
HeroForge lets you design custom 3D miniatures for your tabletop role-playing games.
Using their web-based character building platform, you can fully customize your character's appearance, choosing from hundreds of weapons, armor, and equipment, and then positioning them in a dramatic pose.
Your original miniature is 3D printed to order and shipped to your door. The miniatures are finely detailed, durable, and an absolute joy to paint. You can even download digital STL files to use with your own 3D printer.
For those of you that don't like painting miniatures, good news! You can even order the miniatures printed in full color with HeroForge's new amazing color process.
And now, on to this week's episode.
Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Callie McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. Welcome to our channel where we cover everything Dungeons & Dragons, including advice for players and guides for Dungeon Masters.
We upload new videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so please subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode.
Today, we're taking a look at our picks for the top high-level Druid spells in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. These are spells of 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level, representing some of the most powerful spells your Druid will have access to in the game. While the spells of 1st level to 5th level will always be an important part of your Druid's toolkit, these higher level spells will be dramatic and game-changing and have a big impact on play when you cast them.
Monty and I have each chosen our favorite spell of each level, and we're going to be talking about why we love these spells so much and why they might make excellent choices for you druids out there who are trying to weigh the options between the amazing and unique spells offered to the druid class. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get rolling.
Now, druids are experts at helping their party navigate through the dangerous wilds of the entire world. But there comes a time where rather than getting through the wilds, you just want to sail over them. And that's why the 6th level spell, Windwalk, is my pick for one of the best druid spells at this level of play. This is the level 6 transmutation spell that has a casting time of 1 minute, so it is not a spell you're going to be using in combat. When the druid completes the casting of this spell, the druid and up to 10 willing creatures they can see within range transform into clouds. Well, in cloud form, the only action the druid and their allies can take is the dash action, or transform back into people again, which takes 1 minute. But while you are a cloud, you have a flying speed of 300 feet. Because the only action you can take is the dash action, this means that you and your party now have flying speeds of 600 feet. For those of you doing the math right now, this results in an approximate overland flying speed of 70 miles an hour, roughly 110 kilometers an hour, meaning that you basically got a flying car for your entire party to get wherever they need to go. Transforming in and out of cloud form does take 1 minute, and you're incapacitated while you do so. While Windwalk on paper looks like a fast travel mode, and in many respects it is, there's a lot more to it than that makes it much more unique than simply a teleportation spell. You and your party are transformed into motes of clouds, and you might be able to slip into places that you were not able to get to. My player characters have used the spell to escape from prisons, to infiltrate into demonic strongholds which were warded against teleportation magic, and a variety of infiltration and very tricksy navigation techniques. And because the spell lasts for 8 hours, you can even use the spell, for instance, to scale a cliff or to achieve various objectives in a battle by shifting in and out of cloud form, fighting, and then shifting back into the cloud form again, which is permitted under the spell. It's very useful in so many ways that are difficult to fully quantify, and being as this is a spell that is completely unique to druids, I don't think you should leave the druidic circle without it.
Windwalk is amazing and gives you a really great option for transportation. But sometimes you don't want transportation. You just want to get where you're going now. And that's where my 6th level pick, which is Transport via Plants, comes into play. This 6th level conjuration spell allows you to target an inanimate plant that is large or larger, and as soon as you touch it, you can create a link with that plant. Now, at any point, anywhere else, you can choose another plant that is larger and link them together, creating a gateway between the two of them that allows you to teleport basically from one plant to another, instantaneously teleporting you and all of your allies where you need to go. The great use of this spell is that it can be a getaway card that is really easy to use if you're near any plants. Before you leave your base of operations or your main city or wherever it is that you are fortified, you can touch a tree nearby, link to that plant, and now if you're out in the wilderness and you find yourself in a situation that is dire and you need to get back to town, or maybe it's something simple like you just need more equipment, more gear, more health potions, whatever you might need, you can just touch another tree and bam, you open up that kind of line between those plants and allow you and your party to travel safely back to where you need to go.
One of the things that I like about transport via plants, as opposed to other spells like Teleportation Circle and Teleport, is that Teleportation Circle is restricted to the locations where your dungeon master puts teleportation circles. But basically every city and town where people live is going to have a tree or something. So there's teleportation circles for your druid all over the world, and there's no material component. And it's very, very flexible in where you can go, unlike a spell like Teleport, which, well, you can go anywhere. There's a chance of failure or a mishap. As long as your druid has been somewhere and can touch some plant there, a tree or something big, you can end up there, which is pretty potent.
A druid can undo overland travel. It's not really an issue anymore. If there's somewhere they need to get to in the world, they can either set up a plant-based transportation system, or they can turn into a cloud and the whole party can just fly on over. And if it takes them more than 8 hours, well, 8 hours per casting isn't that bad either. And if they need to fly 8 hours, take a rest, fly another 8 hours, there's some really useful ways that they can basically nullify any sort of advanced sort of overland difficulty. Oh, we need to scale a mountain, or, well, now that we're at the top of the mountain, how do we get back down? Well, there's a tree over there, and we touched a tree earlier. Done. Or let's just turn into a cloud and scale the mountain or get back down.
Leave it to the druids to figure out an environmentally friendly and completely safe green energy transportation plan.
One last honorable mention that we both want to bring up, and it's one of our favorite spells, is Hero's Feast, which the druid also gets. This spell allows you to create an amazing feast that you and your entire party can indulge in, which gains you several benefits.
We've sang the praises of Hero's Feast many times before on this channel, and it's not just because we love food and feasting. It's because this spell is great. Well, it does require a 1,000 gold piece jeweled bowl every time you want to cast it. The benefits really are quite incredible. Your entire party gains immunity to poison and being frightened. They make all their wisdom saving throws with advantage, and their hit point maximum increases by 2d10, and they gain the same number of hit points. These benefits last for 24 hours, which means while the Hero's Feast has a long casting time and requires an hour to eat, you can eat the Hero's Feast the night before, take a long rest, regain your level 6 spell slot, and then use that for whatever other spells you might need to use the next day. This really exemplifies the way that high-level spells in Dungeons & Dragons are more than just about blowing people up or controlling the battlefield or debuffing your enemies. There's a lot of utility and problem solving, and the Druid spell list is not lacking that.
As we move on to 7th level spells, my favorite spell on the Druid list is Reverse Gravity. This 7th level transmutation spell has a 50-foot radius and it goes 100 feet up, and you basically choose that area and reverse the gravity, having all creatures in that area fall upwards. If they hit a ceiling or some other structure along the way, they take the appropriate amount of fall damage. If they go the entire 100 feet up, they're just going to hang there until the spell ends. This is a ridiculously potent and fun spell. Not only will it disable an entire group of enemies, having them fall upwards, allowing you to do whatever else you need to do in the area, it can also do a lot of damage, because fall damage can be pretty intense, especially at 100 feet. Or they're just going to end up hanging there until you decide that they plummet 100 feet down to the ground. The spell allows you to concentrate on it for 1 minute, and if you're in a room that has a 100-foot high ceiling, you can cast this, causing 10d6 damage damage to your enemies. And then if you want to be really cruel, just stop concentrating on it and have them plummet back to the ground for an additional 10d6 damage, meaning that they've now taken 20d6 damage with one casting of the spell.
I really love reverse gravity, and it has a lot of creative applications, but it is environmentally situational. If you're in the right circumstances and you can smash people into the ceiling and the floor again, or keep them bobbing there endlessly, flailing their arms around uselessly, it's super great. But sometimes you're going to end up in a scenario where you're fighting flying enemies, or you're in an area where there's low ceilings anyways, or the circumstances are just constrained and there's no way to reverse gravity without also causing your allies to be caught in the same problem as well. In those situations, I really like the spell Whirlwind, a 7th level evocation spell found in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. This spell basically conjures a small tornado that is 10 feet wide and 30 feet high. The spell lasts for 1 minute, requiring your concentration, and until the spell ends, you can use your action on your turn to move the whirlwind up to 30 feet along the ground in any direction. A creature has to make a dexterity saving throw whenever it enters the whirlwind space, or the whirlwind enters its space, or if it's in the area when the whirlwind first appears. If the creature fails this saving throw, it takes 10d6 bludgeoning damage, half as much on a successful save. A large or smaller creature that fails its save also has to make a strength saving throw, or they are restrained by the whirlwind and sucked up inside it and continue whirling and whirling and whirling away. And every time it continues to be stuck in the whirlwind, it is pulled 5 feet higher inside it, unless it's already at the top. And while the creature is stuck in the whirlwind, it moves around. So you can move this whirlwind around, sucking up all your enemies, trapping them inside it, leaving them restrained, and also dealing a lot of damage to them once they first get stuck in the whirlwind. Best of all, if the creatures that are stuck in the whirlwind try to get out, they can make a strength or dexterity ability check against your spell saving throw DC. But if they succeed, they are flung 3d6 times 10 feet in a random direction, colliding with whatever might be there as well. So this is a really cool and unique battlefield control spell that also does a fair amount of damage too. And even if the creatures escape from it, you might be able to just send that whirlwind over there to suck them up again.
6th level is all about transportation that the Druid offers. 7th level is all about messing with your enemies, using nature. You either are reversing gravity and totally boggling the minds of your enemies as they fall upwards, or you're causing a small tornado to just rip through the battlefield, sucking up all your enemies and flinging them in wild directions. The Druid spell list is a lot of fun and very thematic, and I think both of these spells really speak to that.
For the 6th and 7th level spells, Druids also do have stuff like Heal, Regenerate, and Plane Shift, but I think that you can have a lot of fun with spells like Reverse Gravity and Whirlwind.
When we get into the Druid's 8th level spells, there's a lot of really elementally powerful spells that they have access to. Some of my favorites are things like Control Weather or Earthquake. These spells are really potent at shaping the world around you and bringing that elemental change to the Druid. It really makes them feel like they're controlling the natural environment around them. If you look at something like Earthquake, you can destroy entire villages with this. You can open fissures in the ground. You can cause enemies to fall into them. There's so many raw elements of Earthquake. Mind you, the destructive nature of this spell is going to be pretty potent and dangerous, so you might not want to cast it all the time. You have a chance of wrecking an entire town. If you're in a town that you like, might be a bad time to cast Earthquake. But if you find an enemy stronghold, might be a great time to cast Earthquake. These really kind of drive home that elemental fury of the Druid.
I'm really partial to the spell Tsunami, which was introduced in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which conjures a 300-foot tall tidal wave that crashes forward, sweeping up everything in its path for a huge amount of damage. These spells are overwhelmingly destructive, so much so that I do think that they are a little bit challenging to use. It really conjures that image of the druidic fury against civilization itself. So maybe if these giant, hugely destructive spells are a little bit too much overkill for your campaign, you might want to look at the more restrained but still amazing Feeble Mind and Sunburst instead. There's a lot of great spells at this level, and I think that really for the 8th level Druid spell slot, it's going to be more about what you need to do in your adventure than which is the best spell flat out. I think that if you know you don't need to destroy an entire city, maybe pack Feeble Mind and Sunburst instead because they're a little bit more restrained in their applications. But I would really have trouble leaving home without knowing that I could just completely level a city with an earthquake.
A druid walking into anywhere knowing that they can destroy an entire city is going to give them a lot of confidence.
Druids only have 4 choices for their 9th level spells: Storm of Vengeance, True Resurrection, Shape Change, and Foresight. And I think the clear winner here, as far as just game-changing awesomeness, is Shape Change. This is the one to pick, and here's why.
This 9th level transmutation spell has a casting time of 1 action and lasts 1 hour, targeting yourself.
You assume the form of a different creature for the duration. This creature can have a challenge rating up to or equal to your level, but it can't be a construct or an undead creature. You assume the form of an average creature of its kind without any class levels or the spellcasting trait, but you will otherwise gain all features associated with that creature, including the innate spellcasting trait, though not the straight-up spellcasting trait. Like Polymorph and Wild Shape, you gain the hit points of the creature that you transform into, and when you lose all your hit points, you revert back to whatever hit points you were at when you transformed. You retain the benefit of all your class features and can use them if your new form allows for it. So while you are under the effects of Shape Change, you can still use your Druid spells. If your new form can wear the equipment that you have, it can continue using it, or it can merge with your form and become inert. Finally, while the spell is in effect, you can change your shape again into whatever else you need or want to be as an action. There's only one exception to this. If well under the effects of Shape Change, your new form has more hit points normally than your current form, your hit points don't change. With this spell, you can be anything you want.
I think what's great about this spell is that you still get to keep all of your class features. So if you're a druid taking Shape Change, the fact that you don't gain the benefits of the spell casting feature of the creature you turn into is a moot point because you still have your druid spellcasting. So you're still a spellcaster. The fact that you gain the innate spellcasting abilities and all of the other abilities, as well as just there's a lot of forms that you can change into that have some really cool and unique abilities that you can adopt. You may not gain legendary actions or legendary resistances, but honestly, that sounds fair considering that you're a player character and not a monster fighting a party. It's outstanding the practical uses that you could have. This changes the way the druid could work in battle. It really kind of takes that druid form of being like a shape changer anyway and blows the lid off of it. If you take this, you're now the god of shape changing.
Yeah.
You're no longer just changing into beasts. Now that you can cast 9th level spells, you're like, nah, I can change into anything.
Becoming a dragon feels like the obvious application, but it is worthwhile combing through the monster manual for crazy monsters with cool innate spellcasting features that can get you access to spells that you wouldn't otherwise have. One of the other notable things about creatures with the innate spellcasting trait is they can often cast spells without requiring the material components for those spells either. So expensive spells that normally require like greater restoration or even resurrection spells are often found on the spell lists of celestial creatures or fiends, and now you can use those abilities as well. Oftentimes, there are creatures that have really incredible innate healing powers or innate teleportation powers or other innate abilities that you can use while shape change that don't require your concentration either. So this spell is an invitation for you to crack open that monster manual and turn the dungeon master's dirtiest tricks right back against them. There's so much utility here, and well, yes, we might lament the fact that the druid doesn't get the wish spell. Being able to crack open the monster manual and get its greatest hits, kind of makes up for that in a lot of ways. It's really special.
If you want some great recommendations, we actually have videos on the deadliest mid and high level monsters. As long as they're not undead or constructs, I would look at those lists and be like, oh, I want to change into a Catoblepus and get the Death Ray and just blast people with my Death Ray.
What about transforming yourself into a Mind Flayer or a Beholder?
Yeah.
What about transforming yourself into an Intellect Devourer?
And then jumping into something's brain and taking over? If you're fighting a creature or a monster that has a low intelligence save and you turn into an Intellect Devourer and just hop into its brain, and now not only are you an Intellect Devourer who has Druid spellcasting, but you've also now taken on the form of whatever brain
How
you
does
just
that
stole.
even work?
I don't know, but I want to see it happen at a game. The Druid spell list is full of a lot of really thematic and cool spells, and I think that's really what I like about the Druid spell list, is a lot of these do feel like they pull on the elemental parts of the Druid, or on the nature parts, or on the shape-changing parts, which are all elements that the Druid stands out on. Mm-hmm. So I really do like their spell list, and I think beyond our choices, there's a lot of really awesome choices to consider when you're in the high level of play. These are just our favorites, but perhaps you like some of the other spells. There's a lot of great ones like we mentioned, but these ones are the standouts to us and really feel at home with the Druid.
Yeah, whether you're looking for battlefield control, lots of utility, or just great damage dealing, the high-level Druid spells have you covered in almost every respect. There's a lot of flexibility here, and that versatility that Druids have, especially when combined with their lower level spells and their other amazing class features like Wild Shape and more, really give the Druid a lot of power at high level play. I think a lot of people do feel that the Druid is a class that loses a little bit of gas at higher levels of play, but looking over these spells one more time, I completely disagree. There's a lot of potential here, and the Druids really prove that they are the masters of nature and the elements with their spellcasting.
So this has been a look at high-level Druid spells in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Tell us about some of your favorite picks for high-level spells in the comments below.
The videos that we create on our channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters, and we thank each and every one of you out there from the bottoms of our hearts. If you enjoy the work that we create here on YouTube, please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can find all the details about how in the links in the description below.
And don't forget to check out our live play Shadows of Drakkenheim, which airs Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/dungeon_dudes. You can find all the previous episodes of that campaign right up over here.
And if you're thinking about playing a different spellcaster, check out our other videos on the spells and spellcasting of D&D 5e right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time
in the dungeon.